While I was preparing for my mom's birthday, I overheard my sister whispering, "I can't wait until Olivia moves out." Mom chuckled. "Not before she pays off the $80,000 mortgage." I smiled and closed the door. 2 days later, I made a toast. "Thank you for being here with me today. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are." I'd love for you to share in the comments what city or country you're watching this from and what time it is there. Now, let's begin our story together. I'm Olivia, and this is how my life completely fell apart. It all started when I was about to graduate from college. I had my whole future planned out. Get my degree, find a good job, and maybe get my own apartment. Normal stuff every 22-year-old dreams about, right? But then everything changed with a single phone call. "Olivia, honey, we need to talk," Mom said over the phone. Her voice sounded strange, like she'd been crying. "Can you come home this weekend? It's about your father." I drove home that Friday with a knot in my stomach. When I walked into our house, I could tell something was very wrong. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table, pale and tired. Mom was fluttering around him like he might break into pieces. "What's going on?" I asked, dropping my backpack by the door. Dad looked at me with those weary eyes. "I went to the doctor last week for my chest pains. Turns out my heart isn't doing so well, sweetie." My world just stopped. Dad had always been this strong man who worked construction and never complained about anything. Seeing him so small and fragile scared me to death. "The doctor says I can't do physical labor anymore," he continued. "I'm going to have to find something part-time, something easier on my body." Mom sat next to him and took his hand. "We're worried about the mortgage payments, Olivia. Your father's new job won't pay nearly as much as his old one." I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. Our family had always struggled financially, but we managed. Now everything was falling apart right when I was supposed to start my own life. "And there's your sister to think about, too," Mom added, glancing towards the stairs. "Madison is only 16, still in high school. She needs things for school, clothes, you know how teenagers are." Madison bounced down the stairs right then, headphones on, completely oblivious to the tense conversation happening in the kitchen. She looked so young and carefree, 6 years younger than me. She'd always been the baby of the family. "Hey, Lip," she said, barely looking up from her phone. "Didn't know you were coming home." "Hey, Mats," I managed to say, my voice sounding foreign even to me. After Madison disappeared into the living room, Mom leaned forward and looked at me with desperate eyes. "Olivia, we know it's a lot to ask, but we need your help. Would you consider moving back home after graduation, just for a while, until we get back on our feet?" I looked at both of them, the weight of their expectations crushing me. These were my parents, the people who raised me, who supported me through college. How could I say no? So I graduated college and moved back into my childhood bedroom. Within a week, I landed a decent job at an accounting firm. The pay was pretty good for a recent grad, and I felt proud of myself for getting hired so quickly. But that pride didn't last long. My first paycheck arrived, and I was excited to finally have some real money. I deposited it and came home ready to talk about my budget, maybe set some money aside for myself. "Olivia, the mortgage payment is due tomorrow," Dad said as soon as I walked in the door. "And the electric bill came today." Just like that, my entire paycheck was gone. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, gas money, it all went towards keeping our family afloat. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that things would get better, but they didn't. Month after month, my paychecks went straight to household expenses. I watched my bank account stay practically empty while I worked 40 hours a week. Meanwhile, Madison got everything she needed for school: new clothes, supplies, money for activities with her friends. "She needs to fit in," Mom would say whenever I questioned the spending on Madison. High school is hard enough without looking poor. 2 years went by like that. Madison graduated high school, and I was hoping things would finally ease up. Maybe I could start saving some money for myself, maybe even think about getting my own place. Then Madison announced she was going to college. My parents beamed with pride, and I tried to smile too, but my stomach dropped when I realized what this meant. And just like that, college tuition got added to my list of expenses. Madison chose an expensive university with dorms, meal plans, textbooks, spending money. It all fell on me to pay for it. "It's an investment in her future," Mom kept saying. "You understand, right, Olivia? Family helps family." So there I was, 24 years old, working full-time and paying for everyone else's life while living in my childhood bedroom. I'd see my college friends on social media, traveling, getting their own apartments, going out, having fun. Meanwhile, I couldn't even afford to go out for drinks after work. One Friday, my coworker Megan invited me to go away for the weekend with a group of girls. "There's this cute little inn about 2 hours from here," she said. "It's only like $200 for the whole weekend. Meals included. Come on, Olivia, you never do anything fun." "I'll think about it," I told Megan, but inside I was already planning how I could make it work. That night at dinner, I casually mentioned it. "Some friends from work are going on a trip this weekend. I was thinking of joining them." Mom looked up from her plate with that expression I knew all too well. "How much would something like that cost?" "It's not that expensive, maybe $200 total." Mom put down her fork and shook her head. "Olivia, honey, you know we're tight on money right now. Madison needs new textbooks for her classes, and the water heater has been making that weird noise. That $200 could go towards something actually useful for the family." I looked at them all, a cold feeling settling in my chest. I was working my butt off to pay for everything, and I couldn't even spend $200 on myself for a weekend getaway. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'll tell them I can't go." Mom smiled like I'd made the right decision. That's my sensible girl. Family comes first, always. Another 2 years went by like that. I was now 26, and I'd been supporting my entire family for 4 years straight. 4 years of my life gone, and I had nothing to show for it except a closet full of old clothes and a bank account that never held more than a few $100s. Meanwhile, Madison was living it up at college. Every time she came home for breaks, she'd have new things, designer jeans, expensive makeup, the latest iPhone, while I was still using my 3-year-old phone with the cracked screen. "Where does she get the money for all this stuff?" I asked Mom one day, watching Madison show off her new Coach purse to her high school friends. "Oh, you know how college kids are," Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "Probably saved up from her campus job or something." But something didn't add up. Madison never talked about having a job, and whenever I asked her directly, she'd change the subject real quick. The breaking point came during Madison's spring break of sophomore year. She came home with shopping bags full of clothes, new sneakers that cost more than I spent on groceries in a month, and a fancy skincare routine that was probably $200. I was in the kitchen making dinner when she walked in, wearing a brand new leather jacket. "Nice jacket," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Looks expensive." Madison shrugged and grabbed a soda from the fridge. "Yeah, I got it on sale last week. There was this amazing deal downtown." It must have been an amazing deal. That jacket looked like it cost at least $300. She froze for a second, then turned to look at me, a guilty expression on her face. "It wasn't that much." "Madison, where are you getting the money for all this stuff? Last time I checked, you don't have a job." Her face turned red, and she started fiddling with the zipper on her jacket. "That's none of your business, Olivia. God, why are you always so nosy about everything?" "Because I'm the one paying for your college tuition, your dorm, your meal plan, and apparently everything else in this house," I snapped. "So yeah, I think I have a right to know where you're getting hundreds of dollars to spend on clothes. Maybe if you weren't such a tightwad all the time, you'd understand that college students need nice things too," she retorted. "Tightwad? I'm the tightwad." I could feel my voice rising. "Madison, I work 40 hours a week, and I give every dollar to this family. I can't even afford to buy new clothes for myself." She rolled her eyes. "Whatever, Olivia. You wouldn't understand anyway. Then explain it to me. Where is this money coming from?" "I don't have to tell you anything," Madison yelled, then burst into tears and ran upstairs to her room. I stood there in the kitchen, shaking with anger and confusion. Something was seriously wrong here, and no one was telling me the truth. Mom and Dad got home from grocery shopping just as Madison slammed her bedroom door shut. "What's with all the yelling?" Dad asked, setting the bags down on the counter. I was asking Madison where she gets the money for all her expensive stuff, and she freaked out on me. Mom and Dad exchanged a strange look, and Mom started unpacking the groceries very quickly, avoiding my eyes. "Olivia, you need to stop bothering your sister about her personal matters," Mom said. "Personal matters? Mom, she's spending hundreds of dollars on clothes and accessories. Where's that money coming from if she doesn't have a job?" Dad cleared his throat awkwardly. "Look, Olivia, your sister just wants to fit in with her classmates. College is tough, and she needs to feel like she belongs. That doesn't answer my question. Where is the money coming from? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Mom was still avoiding my gaze, and Dad was suddenly very interested in organizing the canned goods. "Oh my God," I said, the realization hitting me like a truck. "You're giving her money. You're taking the money I give you for bills and giving it to Madison to go shopping." "Olivia, it's not that simple." Mom started. "It's exactly that simple." I was yelling now. "I'm working my butt off to pay for the mortgage and the utilities, and you're taking that money and funding Madison's shopping sprees." "She just needs a few nice things," Dad said weakly. "She doesn't want to look poor in front of her friends." "Then I should look poor. I should wear the same old clothes and a broken phone so Madison can have a Coach purse." "Are you being selfish, Olivia?" Mom said, finally looking at me. "Madison is trying to get an education and build a future. She needs to network, make connections. Looking professional is part of that." "Professional?" "She's buying designer jeans and makeup, not business suits." They both just stood there looking guilty, and I realized this had been going on for months, maybe years. Every dollar I'd worked so hard to earn, every sacrifice I'd made, and they were using my money to spoil Madison while telling me I couldn't even go on a weekend trip. "This stops now," I said firmly. "I give you money for the necessities, mortgage, utilities, food. That's it. No more funding Madison's lifestyle." Mom's face hardened. "Olivia, you're being unreasonable. Your sister deserves to enjoy her college experience, and I deserve to have some kind of life. But instead, I'm stuck here paying for everyone else while you lie to me about where the money's going." Dad tried to play peacemaker. "Maybe we can work something out, find a compromise." "The compromise is that Madison stops spending my money on unnecessary crap. If she wants designer clothes, she can get a job like every other college student." I walked out of the kitchen, leaving them standing there looking uncomfortable. For the first time in 4 years, I felt like I had finally stood up for myself. After that confrontation, the house felt like a war zone. Madison wouldn't even look at me. She'd walk past me in the hallway like I didn't exist. She wouldn't say good morning at breakfast, and if I tried to talk to her during family dinners, she'd just stare at her plate and completely ignore me. At first, I tried to fix things between us. I mean, she was still my little sister, right? Even if she was acting like a spoiled brat about money. "Mats, can we talk?" I asked one night when she was coming out of the bathroom. She looked right through me and kept walking to her room. "Madison, I'm trying to have a conversation with you." She slammed her bedroom door so hard the pictures on the hallway wall rattled. This went on for weeks. Every family dinner was excruciatingly awkward, with Madison sitting there like she was being tortured just by breathing the same air as me. Mom and Dad kept giving me these disappointed looks, like I was the bad guy for not wanting to fund my sister's shopping addiction. "Could you try to be nicer to her?" Mom suggested one night after Madison had stormed off to her room yet again. "Be nicer to her? She's the one acting like a child because I'm not paying for her designer clothes anymore. She's having a hard time at school. She just wants to fit in." "Everyone wants to fit in, Mom. That doesn't mean the rest of us have to go broke to make it happen." But I was getting tired of the Cold War. Madison was acting like I'd personally ruined her life, and honestly, I was starting to not care anymore. If she wanted to sulk and give me the silent treatment, fine. I had bigger problems to worry about, like the fact that I was still stuck in this house at 26, with no end in sight. Things escalated even further a few weeks later. Madison came home from college for a long weekend and announced during dinner that she wanted to go to Florida with her friends for spring break. "It's going to be so much fun," she said, actually talking to me for the first time in months. "We're planning on staying at this really nice resort right on the beach." Mom and Dad beamed like this was the best news they'd heard all year. "That sounds wonderful, honey," Mom said. "You deserve a nice vacation after working so hard at school." I almost choked on my food. Working hard? Madison barely maintained AC average and spent most of her time posting selfies on Instagram. "The trip is going to cost about $800, Madison continued, and then looked directly at me for the first time in weeks, including flight, hotel, and spending money. The whole table went silent. Mom and Dad both turned to look at me with those expectant expressions, like it was a given that I would hand over $800 for Madison's vacation. I put down my fork and shook my head. "No." Madison's face went from hopeful to angry in about 2 seconds. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no. I'm not paying for your spring break trip. If you want to go to Florida, get a job, and save up the money yourself. But, Olivia, Dad started, these college experiences are important for Madison. Then you pay for it, I said. I'm not funding her vacation when I haven't had a real day off in 4 years. Madison threw her fork down on her plate so hard it made a clang. I'm not hungry anymore, she announced dramatically and stomped away from the table. Olivia, you're being too harsh, Mom said once Madison was gone. She's young. She should be having fun. And I should be having fun too. But instead I'm working to pay for everyone else's life. When do I get to go on vacation? When do I get to have experiences? You're older. You should be more mature about this, Dad replied. I'm mature enough to know that $800 for a spring break trip is ridiculous when we can barely pay our regular bills. They both just sat there looking at me like I was the most selfish person in the world, but I didn't care anymore. I was done being the family ATM. The next few days were even more tense than usual. Madison was back to ignoring me, and now Mom and Dad were giving me the silent treatment too. But I held my ground. No money for spring break, no matter how much everyone sulked about it. Then Mom's birthday rolled around, and she asked me to help her get the house ready for her party. We're inviting everyone, she said. Your aunts and uncles, some of our friends from church. I want the house to look perfect. I agreed to help because, despite everything, she was still my mother. We spent the whole day cleaning, and I even helped her cook some of the food for the party. I'm going upstairs to clean the guest room, I said when we were almost done with the main floor. I was up there dusting and vacuuming when I realized I was thirsty. I went downstairs quietly to get some water from the kitchen, and that's when I heard voices coming from the stairwell. It was Mom and Madison talking in hushed tones. I heard my name and stopped dead in my tracks. Something told me I needed to hear this conversation. I crept closer to the doorway and listened. I can't wait until Olivia finally moves out, Madison was saying. The day she leaves, I'm personally throwing all her crap outside and turning her room into my walk-in closet. My heart started pounding, but I kept listening. Well, Mom said, but she was chuckling softly. We can't kick Olivia out just yet. We still owe $80,000 on the mortgage. Well, once that's paid off, she's gone, right? Madison asked. And then this house will be mine. You're not going to leave Olivia anything, are you? Of course not, Mom replied. Olivia can take care of herself. You're the one who will need our help. This house will be yours someday, honey. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I just stood there in the hallway, listening to my mother and sister casually discuss using me until the mortgage was paid off, then kicking me out with nothing. For 4 years of my life. For 4 years of giving them every penny I earned. And this was how they really felt about me. I wasn't their daughter and sister. I was just their personal bank account. I wanted to march right in there and tell them exactly what I thought of their plan, but then I had a better idea. Mom's birthday party was in 2 days. All our relatives would be there. Everyone who thought our family was so close and loving. I smiled to myself as I quietly went back upstairs to finish cleaning. In 2 days, everyone would learn the truth about what kind of people my parents and sister really were. The next 2 days were the hardest acting job of my life. I smiled at breakfast. I helped Mom finish getting ready for her party, and I even made small talk with Madison when she deigned to acknowledge my existence. All the while, their words kept echoing in my head. We can't kick Olivia out just yet. We still owe $80,000 on the mortgage. I'd already packed my bags and hidden them in my closet. I'd also found a small apartment across town and put down a deposit. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Mom's birthday finally arrived, and the house filled up with family and family friends. Aunt Susan, Uncle Tom, my cousins, people from church, everyone was there, talking and laughing like we were this perfect, happy family. Olivia, you look tired, honey, Aunt Susan said, giving me a hug. Are you working too much? If she only knew half the story. The evening went on, with everyone eating, chatting, and sharing stories. Then it was time for presents. Mom opened gift after gift, flowers, jewelry, gift cards, a nice sweater from Aunt Susan. Finally, it was my turn. I walked over and handed her a beautiful envelope I'd bought just for this occasion. Oh, how lovely, Mom said, smiling at everyone around her. She carefully opened the envelope, probably expecting cash or a gift card. But when she looked inside, her face went completely blank. The envelope was empty. Where's the gift? She asked, confusion spreading across her face. I smiled sweetly at her. That's exactly what you, Dad, and Madison deserve. Nothing. The entire room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom's face turned red. Olivia, I don't understand what you're talking about. This must be some kind of mistake. No mistake, Mom. You see, I overheard a very interesting conversation between you and Madison 2 days ago about how you can't wait to kick me out once the mortgage is paid off, about how Madison will inherit this house while I get nothing. There were gasps around the room. Madison turned white as a sheet. I also learned that you've been taking the money I give you for bills and spending it on Madison's shopping sprees. So I thought, why should I give you anything when you've already planned to give me nothing? Dad stood up, his face angry. Olivia, this is your mother's birthday. How dare you ruin it with this nonsense? Nonsense, Dad? I've been supporting this entire family for 4 years. I pay the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, Madison's college tuition, everything. And this is how you repay me. By planning to throw me out like trash once you don't need my money anymore. Madison started crying. Olivia, you're a terrible sister. I hate you. Good, I said calmly, because I'm tired of being your personal ATM. I'm moving out today, and I'm never paying another bill for this family again. Your dream of me leaving is coming true, Madison, but now you can figure out how to pay for your own college. That's when Dad's sister, Aunt Patricia, stood up with a look of astonishment. Wait a minute, she said slowly. Olivia's been supporting the whole family? But your parents told us you were living here because you couldn't find a good job. They said you were struggling and they were helping you out of pity. All the other relatives started nodding and murmuring in agreement. That's what we heard too, Uncle Tom said. We thought Olivia was the one getting help, not giving it. I wasn't even surprised anymore. Of course they've been lying to everyone about that too. Well, now you know the truth, I said to the room full of shocked faces. I'm sorry if this ruined everyone's party, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I went upstairs to get my bags while the whole room erupted in confused chatter behind me. When I came back down with my suitcases, all the guests were still there, watching this family drama unfold like it was a soap opera. Goodbye, I said simply, and walked out the front door. Most of the guests followed me outside, probably trying to make sense of what they'd just witnessed. I loaded my suitcases into my car and drove away without looking back. My new apartment was small and mostly empty, but when I walked through that door, I felt something I hadn't felt in 4 years, freedom. Of course, my family wouldn't leave me alone. My phone started ringing less than an hour later, and it didn't stop. Mom, Dad, Madison, they all called and texted nonstop, but I didn't answer a single call or read a single message. After about a month of blissful silence, a distant cousin I barely knew called me. Olivia, you need to make amends with your parents, she said. They're really struggling without your help. Good, I said and hung up. More relatives called after that, all with the same message about how I should forgive my family and help them out. I hung up on every single one of them. 3 months went by, and I heard through mutual friends that Madison had been forced to drop out of college because she couldn't pay tuition. She was now working at some store in the mall, trying to help Mom and Dad with the mortgage payments. I felt absolutely zero sympathy for any of them. I was finally living my own life. I could buy new clothes, go out with friends, save money for the future. For the first time since college, I felt like a real person instead of just a paycheck. My family had made their choice when they decided to use me. They thought they could take advantage of my love for them indefinitely, that I would never figure out their scheme or stand up for myself. They were wrong, and now they could figure out how to survive without me, just like I'd learned to survive without them. I was done being their cash cow, and I'd never been happier in my life.